The history of democracy is a fascinating journey that takes us back thousands of years. It begins in the ancient world, where the seeds of this form of government were first planted. Democracy, where people have the power to govern themselves, was a radical idea. The story of democracy starts in ancient Greece, particularly in the city-state of Athens. Here, around the 5th century BCE, the foundations of democratic governance were laid. Ancient Greek democracy was not perfect, and it differed significantly from modern democracy. However, its basic principles that citizens should have a say in their government were revolutionary. These ideas would go on to influence countless generations and form the bedrock of democratic systems worldwide. Ancient Greek democracy, especially in Athens, is often celebrated as the cradle of democracy. This form of government emerged around 507 BCE under the leadership of Cleisthenes, who is often called the father of Athenian democracy. It was a direct democracy where citizens participated directly in decision-making rather than through elected representatives. The Athenian model allowed male citizens over the age of 18 to participate in the Assembly, where they could speak and vote on laws and policies. This was a novel concept, as it provided a platform for ordinary citizens to influence state affairs directly. However, this democracy was limited. Women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded from the political process. Despite these limitations, the inclusion of a broad segment of the male population in governance was revolutionary for its time. The Greeks also developed other democratic institutions, such as the Council of 500, which prepared issues for discussion in the Assembly. Greek democracy was groundbreaking in several key ways. First, it introduced the idea of equality before the law. In Athens, all male citizens had the right to participate in the legislative process, making the lawmaking process more democratic. Second, Greek democracy emphasized the importance of civic participation. Citizens were expected to take an active role in public affairs, which fostered a sense of responsibility and community. Third, the Athenian system included mechanisms to prevent the concentration of power. For instance, public officials were often chosen by lot rather than election, minimizing the risk of corruption and the rise of a political elite. Finally, the practice of ostracism allowed the Assembly to exile individuals who were perceived as threats to democracy. These revolutionary aspects made Greek democracy a significant milestone in the history of governance. While Greek democracy was flourishing, another significant experiment in governance was taking place in Rome. The Roman Republic, established in 509 BCE, was not a democracy in the modern sense, but had democratic elements. Power was shared between elected officials and popular assemblies, providing a balance of governance. Roman citizens could vote for representatives in the Senate and participate in the legislative process through various assemblies. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle also played a crucial role in shaping democratic thought. Plato, though critical of democracy, provided valuable insights into governance and human nature. Aristotle, on the other hand, was more supportive of democratic principles. His emphasis on the rule of law and the middle class's role in governance would resonate through the ages. The Middle Ages, often seen as a period of feudalism and monarchies, also witnessed significant developments in democratic thought. One of the most important milestones was the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215. This document, agreed upon by King John of England and his barons, is often hailed as the cornerstone of modern democracy. The Magna Carta introduced the idea that the king's power was not absolute. It established the principle that everyone, including the monarch, was subject to the law. The Magna Carta also included provisions for the protection of certain rights and the establishment of a council of barons to ensure the king's compliance with the charter. While it primarily served the interests of the nobility, it planted the seeds for broader democratic principles. Over time, its influence would extend beyond England, inspiring future generations to fight for their rights and freedoms. The Renaissance, spanning the 14th to the 17th centuries, was a period of immense intellectual and cultural growth. It marked the rebirth of classical ideas and the flowering of humanism, which emphasized the value and potential of individuals. This era laid the foundation for modern democratic thought by promoting ideas of individual rights and civic responsibility. Philosophers and thinkers of the Renaissance began to question the established order and advocate for greater political participation. Figures like Niccolò Machiavelli and Thomas More explored ideas of governance and the role of the citizen in their works. Machiavelli's The Prince offered insights into power dynamics, while More's Utopia imagined an ideal society based on fairness and equality. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg allowed for the widespread dissemination of books and pamphlets, making knowledge more accessible to the general public. This democratization of information empowered people to think critically and challenge authority. The Enlightenment, an intellectual movement of the 17th and 18th centuries, was pivotal for democratic ideals. Thinkers like John Locke, Voltaire and Montesquieu advocated for reason, equality, and individual rights. Locke's writings on natural rights and the social contract were influential. He argued for inherent rights to life, liberty, and property. Montesquieu's The Spirit of the Laws introduced separation of powers. This idea became a cornerstone of modern democratic systems. Voltaire's advocacy for freedom of speech and religion was significant. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason and individual rights set the stage for democratic revolutions. The American Revolution, which began in 1775, was a direct result of Enlightenment ideas. The colonists sought to break free from British rule and establish a government based on the principles of liberty, equality, and self-governance. The Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, eloquently expressed these ideals. The American Revolution led to the creation of the United States Constitution, which established a federal democratic republic. The Constitution incorporated many Enlightenment ideas, including the separation of powers, checks and balances, and protection of individual rights. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, guaranteed fundamental freedoms such as speech, assembly, and religion. The American experiment in democracy was influential worldwide. It demonstrated that a government based on democratic principles could be stable and effective. The success of the United States inspired other nations to pursue democratic reforms and revolutions, spreading the ideals of liberty and self-governance. The French Revolution, which began in 1789, was a significant milestone in democracy. Inspired by Enlightenment ideas and the American Revolution, the French sought to overthrow the monarchy and establish liberty, equality, and fraternity. The revolution led to the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, proclaiming inherent rights and popular sovereignty. It saw the rise of radical democratic ideals and platforms for citizens to voice opinions. Despite its tumultuous nature, the revolution reinforced that sovereignty belongs to the people. The 20th century witnessed significant advancements in the spread and consolidation of democracy. After the devastation of World War I, many nations sought to establish democratic governments to ensure peace and stability. The League of Nations and later the United Nations promoted the principles of self-determination and democratic governance. The aftermath of World War II further accelerated the spread of democracy. The defeat of fascist regimes in Germany, Italy, and Japan paved the way for democratic reforms in these countries. The decolonization movement saw many nations in Asia, Africa, and Latin America gain independence and adopt democratic systems. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi in India and Nelson Mandela in South Africa fought for self-governance and human rights, inspiring democratic movements worldwide. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the subsequent collapse of the Soviet Union marked the end of the Cold War and the triumph of democratic ideals over authoritarianism. Today, democracy is the dominant form of government in much of the world. However, it faces numerous challenges. Issues like political polarization, corruption, and the erosion of civil liberties threaten democratic institutions. The rise of populism and authoritarianism in some regions has also raised concerns about the future of democracy. Despite these challenges, there are many triumphs to celebrate. Democratic movements continue to emerge, advocating for human rights, social justice, and environmental sustainability. The global proliferation of digital technology has also transformed democratic participation, enabling citizens to engage more directly with their governments and each other. International organizations and initiatives work to support and strengthen democratic institutions worldwide. The history of democracy is a testament to humanity's enduring quest for freedom, equality, and self-governance.